On air. We are live. This is Jim Broom and Lauren Brumfield from Reclaim Hosting coming back after a long hiatus of Reclaim today. Too long, in fact. But it's good to be back on the airwaves. And
Absolutely.
we have a very special guest today, Lauren, don't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, we just met with Katie at the workshop at Skidmore College. So after hearing her story, we definitely thought that it would be a great next Reclaim Today episode.
And Katie's an instructional technology specialist, a title near and dear to my personal heart. I came up as an instructional technology specialist, so when everyone says that, it's just something really clicks in me. And she's been working at Plymouth State for how long, Katie?
Almost 3 years. I'm almost to that 3-year mark. Yep.
Wow.
And so what we wanted to know, because Lauren and I think I could speak for Lauren, we were both blown away when you presented at the Skidmore workshop that just happened a little over a week ago. And we wanted to know, how did domains get started at Plymouth State? And what was your what were the beginnings?
Yeah, how and why, I think. Because, I mean, you say, I hadn't realized you were there for only 3 years, given you've had Domain of One's Own at Plymouth State since winter 2016, early 2017. So, yeah, how long?
Yeah. I'm good at weaseling my way into meetings, and when I'm passionate about something, just making sure that it happens. But I think I have to owe a lot of credit to Dr. Robin DeRosa, who is obviously an icon in the open movement overall. And initially, we were really looking to meet her needs in the interdisciplinary studies department. She was having her students create websites for years before we officially started domains here. And she was, telling them how to buy a WordPress, hosting account and how to buy a domain name. In some cases, I think she was, using her own credit card to purchase domains for people. So really like on a one-off basis. And you can just imagine if you have a few classes with 25 students each, how much of a headache that might be from semester to semester. So we were initially looking to meet Robin's needs. But once we got started, I think we really saw the value of domains for all of our students. And that's definitely something that I'm trying to push more on campus, find out what other ways can we kind of move the initiative along.
Yeah, and for folks who, are maybe coming in fresh here, the shared hosting accounts are great to get started for sure, but you don't really have the administrator bird's eye view of all of the accounts that you're managing. So yeah, I remember Robin, I remember those accounts coming through in the beginning. And so it's cool to now see you guys have this, amazing platform to build from. And so actually
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Robin was a total trooper, because when we first signed up, she was doing shared hosting. One of the IP addresses for a server, and it was a new server, was getting blacklisted. So her students would not be able to tweet because that IP had been blacklisted on Twitter. And she was like, what's going on? I don't think I've ever seen a faculty member so attentive to her students' needs.
Right.
But it was also like, that idea of being able to run with it. And also not only run with it, through thick and thin, but then also be able to kind of build a community at Plymouth State. And one of the things you mentioned that I was kind of blown away is you have Robin DeRosa, right, a real figure of the OER movement and open practices and what that means. And then you mentioned kind of administrative leadership, which is always interesting to me, with Kathy LeBlanc and the work she's been doing and writing about. So I'd love it if you said a little bit about like there's more, right?
Absolutely. So there's definitely more. And in the past couple of years, Kathy became interested in domains. She's also recently taken on the position of our general education coordinator. So I think she's really interested in kind of moving students through the Gen Ed program here at Plymouth State, documenting their experiences and allowing them to kind of create their own path here. So Kathy for us has been another huge faculty champion. And at the Reclaim Roadshow, I shared a couple of her blog posts, and this was really early on. I think it was like March or something after we had just started in January, and she was posting about creating a digital identity, and how she built her own website and kind of spreading the word on campus. So she would share those links to her blogs, you know, on Yammer or other platforms that we have. So,
and I feel like that's such a great strategy for early adoption and growth, you know, is finding someone in the community that can be a huge advocate. And, you know, it goes along with, you know, that peer-to-peer learning environment where it's one thing if you have someone managing the project come in and say, you guys should do this, but to have, you know, an actual user argue the importance of it on her website, on the platform, you know, is super important. I think Jim is sharing his sharing his screen here. This is the work that Kathy has done.
Right. So June 2017. So still fairly early, but this was so helpful to us. And Kathy is not only interested in kind of the technical background of this, but you know, really the why is so important to her and to us. And you know, that's something else that I talked about in my presentation at Skidmore, really starting with why. And I have great relationships on campus, but someone who's been a faculty member here for a long time and who has a lot of strong relationships, and her word carries some weight. So that was so helpful to us.
And I think the why is why folks stick around, you know, finding a reason to be there and to create that loyalty, you know, that's why, you know, it builds, I think, over time.
Well,
so
people like Robin and Kathy
yeah,
yourself walking the walk, right? Like
absolutely.
Writing about it on your blog, you know, talking about your long practice, you know, whether it's, you know, interacting on Twitter or building the resources you talk about, doing it in the classroom. I mean, it is a culture. And I'm always kind of struck by this, and this might be out of place for me to say, but I came from a similar kind of environment, a small liberal arts public school, which is not always the case. And we hear a lot sometimes from private schools, like we don't have we have the resources, but we can't get our faculty to do anything, or our hands are tied. And I'm always blown away when folks like you, Katie, come in and just be like, you know what? Boots on the ground, I'm going to get to work. And seeing that and seeing the work you've built has been fascinating. So I want to ask you, Lauren and I both, Lauren,
so, you know, I was looking over our most recent numbers. You know, I actually just checked the Plymouth State server this morning before we got on this call. You know, because like I said, you guys started early 2017. It's been primarily you with a few advocates, you know, pushing it on the ground. But you guys are at almost 1,000 accounts now. You know, and you just you know, upgraded the server to make room for another 500 users over the next semester or two. So, you know, after seeing a lot of schools come through and get domain of one's own, I mean, this is pretty steady growth in the course of a year or two. And so you know, I'm curious, Jim's curious, what are the strategies that you've adopted to create this growth? And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been mostly you pushing this and this has kind of been only one of your responsibilities, right? Like you also manage the campus LMS as well. So, you know, how have you created this growth and continuing to push the motivation on campus?
Yeah, I'm definitely a believer in kind of the boots on the ground approach. And I, you know, maybe I'm lucky that I'm an LMS administrator as well, because I get to meet one-on-one with a lot of faculty and a lot of new faculty who might be interested in maybe pushing the boundaries a little bit. So whenever I get the opportunity, I'm talking about domains and seeing where that might fit in, and not trying to push it where I think it wouldn't fit, but finding the places where it does. And I think focusing on that. You know, we've focused on art, marketing, English, interdisciplinary studies. There's specific majors and programs and even specific courses that I've tried to focus on, and building connections there. And then once you get one person in the art department, they tend to tell their friends. And it's funny to say this today. Yeah, it's a very snowy day in New England, but it really has snowballs. So that's worked for us. And I have had great support from, I should mention, like the other staff in IT. Yeah. My direct supervisor, are people in the applications and development team who give us great support so that we can do the job that we do. And then another big thing has just been actively supporting faculty and students who are using domains. So You know,
Yeah, I thought that was
building their reputation too.
Yeah, so, no, sorry to interrupt. I was just
Yeah.
you kind of sparked something that I remembered from your presentation at the workshop, which was making sure that your community feels welcome to come in and ask questions, you know. So I'm wondering if you could maybe speak a little bit to that and how you've, you know, do you have office hours, you know, or the equivalent, or do you, you know, are you watching your inbox, or, you know, how do you support your faculty? Like, how does that actually logistically happen?
Yeah. So here at Plymouth State, we have a central help desk, and all requests are directed in that. We try to direct all requests there first, and then those responsibilities are delegated. But we also have open hours for WordPress. We also have student workers who have been just essential to this whole process, writing documentation, being available to work with other students one-on-one when they need help. Have I answered some late night emails that went directly to my inbox? Yes. So, you know how that goes.
It's
and
a team effort for sure.
Yeah, sometimes it's necessary. And I think just, making sure that people feel comfortable and confident moving forward and trying new things, because this is a new thing to a lot of people, especially faculty. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I remember during your talk, and again, I was a big fan of your talk, but I remember one of the things you said was, you encouraged the people in the audience at Skidmore to do the class visits, to spend the time, letting them know you can come and you'll be there. And that really resonated with me on a personal level, because when we at Mary Washington were building UMW blogs, and then, in 2012, 2013, Domain of One's Own, it was all class visits. Like, it was all being there and being present and letting people know that this is a new thing and you are experimenting, but you will be supported. And I think sometimes there can be an approach to something like domains, and I think it's dangerous, is we want it, but we don't want to support it, or we don't want our fingerprint on it, or we don't want those late night emails. And I understand not wanting that stuff, but I often think that you can't have it both ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And in reality, I'm not sure we did have capacity for this when we first started. We've kind of made room and used our student workers. But yeah, I definitely believe in, visiting classes, working one-on-one with the students, even just the step of making sure that people get set up in the right way, where they, and making sure they know where to find support. We've built a ton of resources. We want people to use those before they call us, right? So having that initial face-to-face, I think, is just
the
super
first impression. Yeah, the first impression and that first user experience with where they go and find everything. But
I'm going to try and find it, Lauren, because I think it's cool. I want to find the glossary.
Yeah. Okay.
You created the glossary. Am I right, Katie?
Yeah.
Actually, a student worker named Ryan French wrote the terminology section.
It's super cool. So on top of, Weekend Hosting will pass the, a clone of the community docs that we have as sort of a starter. But I always love when schools kind of obviously take and adopt that and grow from it, but then build out their, additional resources for their community. So Jim, has shared his screen here, this glossary of terms to know for, new folks.
Yeah. We thought it was important to pull some things out of the general support page and put them right on the Plymouth Create site, just as a quick reference. A student worker made this. I'll let Jim show it.
No, it's awesome. I love it. FERPA. Installatron, right?
It's really helpful to understand the differences. I mean, I remember when I first saw cPanel and interacted with cPanel for the first time, and I had no idea, what the difference between a subdomain and the subdirectory was. And understanding some of those terms can help you better than organize your cPanel. And that's crucial for a faculty member managing multiple courses. Are they going to manage them all on subfolders, or are those subdomains?
And I reference that information all the time. I don't have an IT background, so I need that information too. It's been really, really helpful. But our student who built it is great. Didn't even ask him to do it. That when we're getting students involved and excited about this too, that's indicative to me that we're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. And so, you had mentioned earlier on that focused on departments and courses and faculty members that where domains could work, and you had mentioned the art department, for example. And I think, am I correct that Plymouth State has created templates for these specific use cases? Could you maybe speak to that and how, like, where you saw the need and how you created those? Because, Reclaim Hosting has a few of these templates, these splots or tiny teaching tools or whatever you want to refer to them. But it's obviously very fascinating, to see Domain of One's Own schools then create their own templates.
Yeah, and I think every school's needs will be different. Here, we do use Mahara, which is a portfolio building tool, and that's used significantly in the art department, in education as well. But yeah, we wanted to build our own where we kind of knew exactly what they needed. And it's typically like faculty are assessing student work or portfolios in their 4th year. And so we built WordPress templates and pushed them into the WordPress installation. I don't know the technical term for all of that, but we built, a splot, a couple different art templates. We did kind of a digital resume, just a basic, here's my resume, an about me page for students who might just need that when they're graduating. And I think for us, that's really the next step. We've really just started down that path. So I'm excited to see what else we might build in partnership with faculty. I think that's another important point. It doesn't really make sense for me to build a bunch of templates without understanding their needs. So yeah, we'll see what happens in that realm. Check in with us in a year or two, I'd say.
Okay. Yeah, Jim, did you happen to have any links?
I do have links. Oh boy, do I have links. Links are what I have. Now, but rather than me just randomly go through your links, Katie, which, could be inappropriate, I think we have a series of links that we talked about before because we prepare here. We're professionals, right, Katie? I mean, this is what we do. We're instructional technologists.
Right. So do you want me to pull up something, or are you going to?
I mean, if you want to share, feel free. If you can share a screen cleanly on this Google Hangout, that's fine. If not, I can do it for you.
Let's see. I do have a few pulled up, but maybe, let's see.
See if the share works for you.
Yeah, the screen share is, I think, over in the left hand.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, because you're riffing on that stuff during the talk was awesome.
Yeah. So, right. I don't think we got to see too much of this, but this is what we were talking about with the About Plymouth Create and kind of the additional documentation we made. So yeah, we've got references to FERPA, even what is open education, the terms to know, which is that glossary. And again, a student did this and I was like, oh, that was a great idea. I didn't even think of that. The same student made this really creative and interesting site for a final class project in lieu of writing a final paper, that would be submitted in Moodle and never seen again. So it's all about Tai Chi and what is flow. And I just love the way that it looks. There's a personal account of Tai Chi and flow. And I feel like if we take students out of that mindset of like writing a final paper and it's just about the research rather than making connections to their own lives and, this personal account. And the student's so funny too. But I just love to see this as it's just one example, but it's so powerful to me and this will live on.
Right. Yeah. And, you can't put gifts like that in a paper, and I may be a bit biased, but, embedding videos and that sort of thing, but then also making it a more interactive experience for the entire class, as opposed to just the professor who's maybe doing the grading. So, being able to share it on a larger scale too.
And exactly. There's kind of a web vernacular to it. Like I am very compelled by, like the idea that these resources they're seeing and using find their way in to their critical thinking and writing. It kind of blends the web and teaching and learning in ways that oftentimes more traditional assignments don't.
Right. And when students leave here, they're not just writing papers when they're at work, right? They're interacting on the web and collaborating with other people. And I think this more closely kind of mimics what their work life will be. And we probably don't even know what they'll be doing in 10 years or so. Another example was an algae database that we had a student build for her final capstone. She did this in Omeka.
So kind of, yeah, on these, going with these examples, have these students graduated? Okay, so yes, have they graduated?
The one who built the algae website has, and the one that built the Tai Chi website is still here and works for us, and also wrote the glossary.
Yeah, it brings up kind of the next topic of conversation that I wanted to touch on, your migration strategies and how you handle, data ownership. And maybe those are two separate conversations, but, once a student graduates, these are obviously wonderful resources. Does Plymouth State plan on keeping them as a university archive of work that's been created? Or, I also know schools that will terminate everything at the end of a semester on the very other extreme side. So how do you guys manage that, that growth and needing to maintain storage quotas and that sort of thing while also keeping these resources after college careers are over?
That is a really good question. I don't think we've figured it out completely yet. Because we're still pretty small, we'll always be, about 4,000 undergraduate students. So maybe we'll benefit from that in a way. And being able to identify, sites that we want to keep and even being aware of them, I think is another challenge. And maybe finding some way where people can submit information about their sites to us. I know at some other schools, they've done like awards for best website in different categories, and maybe doing something like that would be a good way to collect some of that work. And I think with permission, we'd like to keep a lot of those alive. Certainly the algae database is a great one. It's a database of algae that we have in a collection here at Plymouth State. So while it was a student's work, it definitely holds value and is something that we can build upon in the future. And I love to keep things just as an example anyway. So I think we'll find a way to do that. Do we have a formal process yet? Not quite. For most students, we send out an email and we say, after you've graduated, we give them 30 days. You can migrate, here are your options. We can walk you through the process, trying to be as supportive as possible, but letting them know that's an option to take their content with them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I saw you guys had the, on the page that had the terms to know and everything, there was the migration options there as well, which it's nice that you highlight that right off the bat.
Yeah.
I also like that you kind of are like, you are Tai Chi flow too, meaning like you're pretty mellow with stuff. Like you're not like, you're kind of making it up as you go along, but it's building kind of organically. That a lot of that seems to kind of reflect. Like I was really taken, I'm going to share a site that I was taken with too, actually, that you showed. One is by Katie O'Leary, I think her name is, and it's going to show Rob Hanson's site, but I'll talk about that second.
Sure.
But there were two student portfolios. This one is, I think it's Katie O'Leary, that's how you pronounce it. But just her art is awesome. And
it's so good.
I can't imagine that you wouldn't have basically a student who did this wanting to say, you know what, I'd like to take this with me. Like, I can see the value in this stuff as it reflects the work I've done, the art I have. And I just really thought that was a really great example. And I'll be using this as a really cool kind of portfolio. And this other student, Rob Hanson, who works in various media and, offers images and, basically descriptions of the stuff he creates. And like, for me, this is a portfolio. Like, this is a frame of the research, the methods, the statement. And beautiful done.
And sorry to interrupt. I love Rob's site too, because it also shows the process of creation. It's not just the final pieces. So it's almost more than a portfolio because it's it's like a living, breathing, blog of his process. So I thought that was cool.
And I have a rock that needs a very similar like wire mesh. So I was hoping to talk to Rob about a home for my rock.
We'll get you in touch with Rob for sure. Yeah, students are doing amazing things. And I think it was last year I met with the graduating BFA students to talk about their websites and offer kind of any last minute assistance they might need. And a few of them migrated their sites, I think, to Reclaim. I think I mentioned I was looking at one of my old examples, and his site was gone from our accounts, but it was because he had migrated his site and purchased his own domain when he graduated, which is exactly what we want to see, I think.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So, kind of to wrap up here, so without going too far over, if do you have any parting words of wisdom for maybe schools that are looking to do domain of one's own? They're interested in it, but they're maybe not sure how to just get started. It's a big initiative to take on. So what are your, I guess, words of wisdom?
Right. I think my advice would be to start, and to start with why. That's kind of been my major theme. And if possible, I know we have the luxury because we're a little bit smaller of being a little bit more maybe laid back and learning as we go, but I think that approach works for this. You might not understand or fully see the potential of how domain of one's own can fit in at your institution until you get started and begin having those conversations with other faculty and staff in your community. So I know at Skidmore, I heard a lot of questions like, what about this? And we need to have this figured out before we start. And yes and no. Maybe there are some things that you can figure out as you go.
That's a great point. I think that there are quite a few schools that sort of stop because they don't have all the answers, and they don't have everything figured out. But I agree. I think that domain of one's own it's meant to be an exploration tool, and part of that is exploring the policies and management side as well. So, we can do what we can to prepare, and we have quite a bit of experience in that category. But
if this is about student agency, then let's allow it to be that and allow the students to really decide what they want to do with it.
And am I right? Did you say let go? Was that?
Well, I didn't say that exact phrase, but yes, let's just let go a little bit.
Yeah.
Just start.
Maybe I was just interpolating that because then I started thinking about Frozen and the fact that we might be able to put together a whole Let It Go video and dance. It's snowing in New England. Like it could kind of be a really great ed tech musical intervention.
I have a film background, Jim. You can sign me up for that project.
That's awesome.
But I do like, I think the quote of the day is, what are your words of wisdom? To just start.
Of course, and also start with the why. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Like, I think the one question when people come to us is it's clear who doesn't know why they're doing it and someone told them to do it and who's coming with a real reason. And that's important for us to suss out because it's not good for anyone if you're just doing it to do it. You know what I mean? So.
Yep, agreed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
thanks so much for meeting with us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I've enjoyed it very much and can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah. Reclaim Hosting is a big fan, Katie Martell.
Absolutely.